What's going on, guys? So a lot of people have asked me if I could do a follow-up video on the Reese Goosebox that was installed on my fifth wheel about 6 to 8 months ago and what my impressions are now that we've had it on here for a while. So hang tight, I think you're going to enjoy this video. So a Goosebox is a replacement to a pin box that you would normally see on a fifth wheel. What the Goosebox does is it gives you the ability to use a goose ball or a traditional goose ball instead of a large fifth wheel hitch in the bed of your truck. Now there's a lot of huge perks to having this type of setup. The first one and most obvious one is going to be the fact that it clears out pretty much everything from the bed of your truck. So that gives you a lot of utility space, let's say when you might otherwise have a fifth wheel hitch sitting back here while you drive around. Let's say you need to go to Sam's Club or you need to go to Lowe's or you need to pick something up and you have the fifth wheel hitch sitting in the back of your truck. Well, now you need to make a trip home to remove it, even if it's a lightweight version, so you can have the room you need to fit whatever you need to put in the bed of your truck. Having a goose ball back here really doesn't take up any room at all, and if I have to remove it, it's a quick, simple process of removing the ball, removing the mounts, and loading up whatever I need to load in the bed. The next big advantage is the fact that it removes and eliminates pretty much any chucking or any type of slop you might normally have with a fifth wheel hitch. Now, what I mean by that is when you have a kingpin that goes into a fifth wheel hitch, there's going to be a slight amount of movement inside there, and you're going to feel that movement when you're hitting your brakes, when you're stopping, speeding up, and sometimes it'll translate to kind of a clunking sound or a clunking feel when it happens. It's not going to happen all the time, but it does happen frequently when you are towing with a fifth wheel hitch and your traditional pin box assembly. Now, in terms of weight difference between a Goosebox versus your traditional pin box, this is going to weigh about 100 pounds more, sometimes even more than that. However, you're actually going to reduce your overall weight simply because you're going to be removing the fifth wheel hitch from the bed of your truck. So my prior setup with a pin box that came with the vehicle weighed about 75 pounds, but my B&W hitch weighed about 200 pounds. So you're looking at about 275 pounds for the entire setup. With this setup, the majority of the weight is in the Goosebox, but it does remove the weight from the bed of my truck. So really, the total, this thing's going to weigh about 50 pounds less overall in terms of pin weight from the bed of my truck. Now, the Goosebox isn't 100% the most convenient setup to go with, mainly because there's a few things you have to keep in mind. First of all, with the fifth wheel hitch, it's very unlikely that you're going to back up too far and hit your fifth wheel with your tailgate being down, mainly because you're going to have that stopping point. Once the kingpin hits the hitch itself, it's going to stop and it's going to let you know that it's there. And with this Goosebox setup, you always have the chance that when you're backing up, there's nothing to hit, there's nothing to stop you if you back up too far, and you could very well back into your trailer if you're not very careful. So you have to have some means to know and spot exactly when you're directly over the goose ball itself. And if you've watched my channel for a while, you'll know that I have this camera installed directly on the left side of my bed, which looks directly down at the goose ball and gives me the ability to see exactly when my goose box is over the ball. So something else to note, with the goose box, you have this cable right here on a handle which you use to unlock so you can decouple from the goose ball assembly. And sometimes that can be a little bit difficult to operate simply because with the airbag inflated and this part right here being down, because there's an airbag inside of here that allows you to raise or lower this portion here. It adds some cushion and it makes it for a more comfortable and less stressful towing experience on the trailer itself. But when that's inflated, it puts a lot of pressure on this cable. Right now, you wouldn't be able to just pull and lift this cable off of here. I'd have to let air out of the airbags, so this piece would collapse up and it would reduce some of the pressure here, or I'd have to hitch it to the truck and probably still reduce some air out of here. So even though I don't have any problem decoupling like I used to where I dump all the air, it's still a pretty good practice to do it because the amount of pressure on this steel cable right here is going to be pretty great until you actually remove some of the pressure off of the airbag, and this assembly can tilt back slightly to loosen up the tension off this cable. And on that same topic, something else that would have been really nice is if they put a better system here to where you could actually pull on this cable from the back of the truck. It's a very awkward angle to try to get to this cable, especially with this little wing sticking out here, and try to get it pulled back and either over or off of this little groove that they put here to hold it. And probably my single biggest gripe, and it's one that we're actually working on right now, is that there's no theft prevention locking system on this setup. So when it's closed, there's no real way to put something around it to prevent somebody from hitching up. Even though a buddy of mine has come up with a fix that we're going to have implemented on this fifth wheel by the time you see this video. And finally, something a lot of people mentioned in the video after we installed this is that the bolts needed to be torqued from the opposite side, or from the nut side, which would be on the inside of the assembly and not from the bolt head right here. I contacted Reese, and Reese actually told me the way I installed it was correct, and the torque specifications on these bolts took into consideration the inside torque requirements as well. However, I did go back and I retorqued them from the inside because I knew some folks would have an issue with that. But that does raise a possible concern of these bolts being slightly over torqued now. However, after calling Reese, they said I shouldn't have any problem at all. And then finally, some folks who own the Goosebox and have been using it for a while have said they've had issues with their airbag leaking air over time while they're either towing, while it's in storage. And when that happens, especially if you're towing, it drops the height of your overhang here to your bed rail dangerously close. I haven't experienced that issue. The bag's been holding air perfectly fine. Even in storage, whenever we hitch it back up, it's still at the same level that it was before. But it's definitely something I'm going to keep an eye on, because again, the last thing you want is for 6.5 inches of bed rail clearance to drop down to 3 or 4 inches and potentially cause damage to the truck or the combination of truck and trailer. So that's it. That's the updates on this thing. I've really liked it so far. There are some things I would like to see improved. There are some real benefits to having this setup. At the same time, I definitely don't regret having the Goosebox. It is a very convenient setup in terms of giving me back the space I need in the bed of my truck. If you're wondering, I have a solar panel here which just provides a trickle charge to the main battery in the event that it's sitting in storage and the battery for some reason has some type of parasitic draw and we have yet to come back to a dead battery. But we're also now connected to a spot that gives us full 30 amp connection all the time, so we have power going to the coach. But there have been a few scenarios where this has come in really handy, and it's provided that little bit of a trickle charge that we've needed to top off the batteries in an environment where it's not connected to power. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this short video. If you did, please take a moment, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and we will talk to you again very soon.